Hemsh Chaim Beis Chelik Aleph, Maimon Dibur Maskul Halus Hashem Kol Goyim Omud Tov Kov Zayin. And we saw the union of the lack of bittul in the Sitra Achra was due to the Chayser Slabshus of the Eloki, but it was Davkia Dova Nesef Lahem Kilo, and it was aimed Bepinas Makiv. And we saw that it was brought down from the Eitz Chaim that Kodesh Eino Misarav Choyel, and that was a klolus in that their nitzutz nimtzu b'teichom was also b'chinas golas, even though there was an akuda of a pnimi, but that was also an even shel golas. And we described those concepts at some length. Nimtzu, that their whole chayus was only just to keep their, wasn't a inif an oyer of a kilo eloki or into to be poyo as a inyan eloki, but purely to keep them going for the negative aim and goal that's there in their whole existence, that they should become misbatel alidei the gila kiddush alidei avedus adam. And therefore kumtois that even bisman hiyosom, they're not really there in a state of genuine chaim, how it is mitzad the musik of chaim amitim al pi kedusha. That's what we drew. I have del bein chaim how it is mitzad the sitra achra, and chaim how it is mitzad the inen kedusha. And we brought a dugma lazeh from the inen and the nisyonis, that there's something that its whole inen is only to be mispatel, the einless inen mitzad atzmai. And ein b'zeh shum inyan shel oyer v'gili eloki v'chulu elitz ador shel humad enal lenaseis eso adam. However, we saw that the Kaviyachol, the Maila in this Shenas was at Miyad, that he's aimed b'teikif neged in the Soyin, or al chaponim al yidei shehu aimed b'teikif neged han Soyin, yachol yot shelo Miyad. Then there's a bittul in the nitzotz of the Nesoyin Legamri. And we saw that was a certain Maila Kaviyachol in the Shenas, that once has been the Amida ben Nesoyin, and that Amida was caused mitzad the kavan elokis in the whole inyan on the soil, like we see by the Kedah, for example. There was a whole tachlis eloki in that. Then the whole inyan becomes potel v'hoyo keloi hoyo. Ve'ilu, we saw the inyonim begashmis v'chumius ha'olam, what they manases ha'odam, not b'derech nesoyin, but he has to be miskaber on them alidei the inyan aveda, that they have a certain koishi in them, because they don't become misbachel mikol v'chol legamre, or they continue, as it were, to use the expression, here he is back again. They keep sort of reappearing and nudging the Adam, despite the fact that he's already caused in them a certain chalishas, b'pa'amachas, or b'kama piyomim. And so that we saw was also, the nitzutz in them was for the same meaning. It was only in order that there should be the avedus ha'adam levatlom mi alidei avidosai. So we saw the alkain heim mispayud aleph. That's what we're holding near the about a third of the way up, a little less on Tov Kov Zayin. Alkain heim mispayud aleph mipnei shachayis nexo ladova v'fnei atzmai. Alkain heim mispayud aleph. V'hainu hayud ksorim shehin es sfiras danoiga. יש בזה גם 10 נצוצות דקדושה כנ"ל, אך אינם בבחינת חייס להם. So we saw there was the Yud Kesorim, what there the Etzem 10 Sfiras Araya in Klippa, and we brought at the beginning of this chapter, the Lashon in the Eitz Chaim, that there's also 10 netzutzes dekadusha, which are nimtu b'toichom b'pnimiyas, although we saw that wasn't b'chinas chayis lohem. In other words, that the chayis is from the makiv. The presence of that pnimi in them is more in a state of golus, And even to the point that we asked in the last year, what was the point of having the whole Indian if it's really not Indian shall Chayas Amiti is, and the Ike Chayas is from the Makiv, and it's anyway Belawachi Begolos, a kilo Eze Tachlis, Eze Tam, Yesh Bezeh. So we saw that we have to say that there has to be also a Chayas Pnimiyas Kidei Shesof Kosof, that there'll be a biro amiti in the clippers either now or the Ossi to take it from the Yad Mamish, that they will also be able to be misparo mishapeich legamri le kedusha, which means that there has to be a certain oya pnimi in them which all beards or even shall kolos or yesh b'seh eize miktas bittel eize miktas kli le kabbalah. But they said it's possible so there be a biro b'der pnimiusa. Mashenkin, if it was only mitzad the makiv, it could be that they would be lost altogether, but der Chavoden or in yonim of that sort. Is the fact we Leidok Kisa, we said that what was the diuk of the fact that Ike Chayas is mitzad the makiv, that we find in Kedusha Gam. Perik Mem Ches, the Alter Rebbe in Tanis Mavai, how the whole Ike Chayas of the Yesh and the Mehisavas of the Nivroim is anyway mitzad the Makiv, and he calls it over there as Ike HaChayas. If that's Ike HaChayas coming Kedusha, then was it the Evdel Ben Zel Lazel? We spoke about that last week as well, mentioning that Ein Nochanami mitzad Etzem HaIsavas, the Oyer Makiv is Havdolah. But there is the possibility and the purpose and the kavona and the tachlis that the nevroim al choponim, the odom, he should be able to be not only margish but eventually even masik, the makiv, and eventually that makiv should be nimshik mamish bepnimias afilu alidei avedus odom. It's only makiv mitzad the etzem isavas, but not mitzad the mitis atachlis in the chayas. Ilu kan, that's the whole chay, that's the way they are. Ein kol sikui that it would be murgish behem or nimshik lehem. No, it's imad aleim mil maidom. So that's where we're holding. I'll say who inyan ubchim sayud alev shu amachiv to lavein nezachen. What it's interesting, this derech agav. For now we see, like it's Mavua in Perik Vov, in Tanya was not Mavua, but it appears over there in Perik Vov in Tanya also, that the Esa Spheres of Noiga are called Ksorim, even the Spheres. Not just the Makiv is called Kesa, but even the Esa Spheres themselves are called Ksorim. Esa Ksorim, the Noiga. What they're the Esa Spheres. Once again, we have to say that the Indian being that the Indian of a keser is the toichef. The toichef of a melech is this keser. She is per se gaminin shomakiv. It expresses the Indian of his snasas and his brem. And in kedusha the esespheres are called esespheres. That what we had the oricha sorry in the Emsher. The shame sphere and wild sphere. That indicates even oil, toichef oil, beetle, indicates in lower madrigas from mispa of a amitius amusik, it indicates from light and bittel. Mashenkin, that's the word sphira. Mashenkin, if they're called ksorim, that means that kilo they're all at loggerheads one with the other. Each one of them is, even from Toichu, from Mitziyusay, what's al teravid in how it is in Toichu. And therefore, since they derive from the nafila of the Natsutas in Toichu, therefore they have that aspect about them that even their spheres are really called ksorim. In other words, there's no interaction between them so much, but each one of them is kilateka from Tzias with the Bifnei Atzmai, and therefore even though that's the Pnimi Yoter, or that's called Esek Ksorim. ובכן זה י"א שהוא המקיף תלווין הזקו, שזהו עיקר החי שלהם, שעומד בכינס מקיף עליהם. Now that expression Leveina Zako, well, that's in the Keteris Kufa, that's one of the Ike things that are mentioned over there. So Lafia Kabbalah, the Leveina Zaka, that's the Makif which holds all the other Samonia Keteris, that's what holds them, that's what gives them their chayas. So later on, in the Hemshech, here, not all that terribly far from here, the Rebbe is masbir what is the union of Lovena Zako. He's masbir a bit more in detail what it is, and that's what he calls Atik the Klipper. And it's what he calls Atik the Klipper. And the union from Zako and Lovena, Zako is killed the union from Malchus. If I'm not mistaken, he's masbir later that's union of Malchus, Dasia, at Yerod, Mamish Lamata, and a certain Chayas and Nimshik from Malchus, Dasia, that Makif to the Indian Klippers, that's called Zacho, that's because it came from Malchus Dasia, which is really shot to the Indian Kedusha. When Lovena is another Indian, what Lovena has also got in itself the idea of whiteness, or Pshitas, that's the Toikev, and the Makif more in the Inyane HaKlippers. So over there, it's the state. Maybe we should wait till we get over there and we'll see it more bifnim rather than talking about it believe bifnim. Over there, the Rebbe makes a haora, which is Meira b'chol Inyane Ma'ilu, that in Kedusha, the higher you are and the higher the level from whence you start, then that's more the Toikif and more the Bittel of the Inyan HaKedusha. The more these scholars Toikif are Bittel. He said in Klippers it's verkehrt. The lower you go, that's where you get the Toikif. The more you follow up in the Inyan from Choyser HaBittel, the Choyser HaOyer, then that's where the Toikif becomes more. In other words, it's the lower ones, the ones that are how do you call it? The versteppte capitals that are right down at the bottom. They're the ones that make all the difficulties, and they're the ones that cause all the teikuf and the bren. Achman in Islam was ein kan. Amachin lo letet Moishe says as you do. That some of the greater Rishoyim in history that did all the damage and all they were tipshim and lo b'derech gilei hachochma v'lo b'klau Achman in Islam. So that's a fascinating that the Makif of the Lovena Zako is really at the end of the Klippers. In other words, that their Atik is really once they finish their Esespheres, then you touch in on their Kesa. Ilu Lamaila in Kedusha, the Kesa and everything is Lamaila al Inyanim. In the Klippers is B'diuk Fakir. That Makif of Lovena Zako, that's Atik the Klipper, but that's really Nimtza B'takti is called Klippers. And yet Davki, that's where the highest comes from. And that's what also gives them Davki, because that's the Merchach HaKi Otzu, HaKi Rochik from the Inyan HaKedusha. Therefore, there's the Toikuf of Yeshes, like Pare. He's called interesting enough, he's called Arik the Klipper, Pare. The Lovena Zach is even deeper than him. But Pare is called Arik the Klipper. And he's got the same meaning. He said, he was the take of Bren Vayeshes and what you might call the Ha'ozer of the Klipper. And therefore there's a whole inyan brought down in Maimonides, says not only in here in Iron Base, but in other Chechim, that boy al Pare, they should come instead of go, no, come with me. But the Zohar answers a teretz that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he started going really to Pare to the Sof, to the last showdown with him, then he was taken in to also to Madudin, Ba'elam Klippers, and he saw the Tanin Hagodl, Haroyevitz, that was in from Pare. Then he said he can't do it, it's too much for him, he can't face us, I'm in Bren. As I stated, Moshe Rabbeinu said he can't. So therefore the Aviv said, boy, come with me. And it was, I'll go with you and bait again, and then for sure we'll bring him down. And that's the union from boy instead of lech, but that's the in the Zohar Kodesh. So it's written in those drushim in Exodus. Here in Iron Base also is brought down that that's union from Arif the Klipper, and Moshe Rabbeinu, his union is Chochma. Therefore, he can be Mavatal also to be known about when he meets up with the Indian from Klipper, how this mamish, even Lamailami, called Medida Vagbala, Lamailami called Zeh, then Moshe Rabbeinu was Choishish, Shema lo yeh bi yicholte levatle. Therefore, you have to have a Davis should go along with him and be Mavatal. It would seem that in later generations, the Moshe Rabbeinus of the later generations, they had to take on themselves. And they already found koyas to deal with, even with those sort of inyanim. In other words, it's like it's written in certain places. Once the Eibshter gives koyach to a certain inyan, then everybody can, whoever is shaytuk can take it. It already becomes similar to what is written at the end of last week's parsha. The Mizbech is called Hashem Nisi. Hashem Nisi. So the Baal Shem Tov said, why is it called Hashem Nisi? Because when the Eibshter makes a nes, then it's a Chiddush Gadol, and it's a Chiddush which is Meshana, the whole union of Teva, Chayei Odom, Ve'elu Shenenu Mi'anes. Only after it's already been made, that becomes part of the whole Teva, that already becomes a chelik of the Anhogas Ha'olam. The next nes is going to have to be a bigger one. That's the Taish Hashem Nisi, that's already become my nes. That's it, it's not the Baal Shem Tov, this is my nes. Yeah, I've already put that one in the pocket of what you might call ordinary Seder HaChayim. Jetzt lassen wir sehen, wo ist dann weiter. In other words, the war against Amalek, the final one, is really going to be big time. It's just Hakav, it's fascinating. The Rebbe brings it in a place. The Rebbe's got in a mime about it. The Targum Yonason says, Melchama l'Amalek, Hashem ba'Amalek, Doya Doya. He says, Dora de Achshov, Dora de Moshe, and Dora de Malcham Mashiach, and Dora de Elam Haba. That's what it seems that even after Moshiach, there's still going to be a dach sticky in of a Molech, and I feel in Elam Haba. Ulai HaKavanah Lagid, in order to get into Elam Haba, you'll have to get rid of another delegate of Mamish in Elam Haba. Anyway, El Chopayim, as they state in the Targum Yonason. So let's get back to our theme. Exactly how we got on to that, I don't remember. But anyway, Arachi Inyan of the Makif Aleihim Melmaid, the Makif Levein Zako. That's it. The Chiddush Gadol is that the Rebbe writes here, that's a Atik, that's the Koyach Aki, Takif, Sheyesh Lehem. Ochaponim Shehu Shezeu Ika HaChai Shelehem Shoim B'chinas Makif Aleihim. We're already masber that even in Kedusha we also have the inyan from Ika HaChai. Ve'al Zeh Hu Inyan Yud Aleph Samamone HaKtoiros Lahalis Ulavarer Hayud Aleph Kisorim. That's pretty, tremendous going. To be Mavada, the Yud Aleph Kisorim, that would be apparent even the Makif, the Levein Zaka, even the Chayes. So that's a tremendous koyach to be Mavada and Ma'aleh, that. But Hine, says the Rebbe, Ibam Elkum Tois, that there's no Isarvis in the Inyan and Klippos. The Ike Kedusha, what holds them in life and gives them their kiyum, is Mudom here. So the Rebbe said, we find another case where there is a Hisarvis of the Noiga al Chaponim, or the Liyumazeh and the Kedusha. So he said, Vehine benefesh alekis benefesh abamiyas. A new theme now. Harei anefesh alekis mislabish benefesh abamiyas shemeklippos Noiga. Ve'eno emedes al roisho b'chinas makif levot kiim melubish boy b'chinas pnimi mamish. Benson, can you just check if that's working properly? Here's an interesting, this is Kilo B'derech Shaila or Biro al smach what we said before, that we said that the Klippos and their Chayes are never be Hisarvis. Here we see an interesting Indian that the Nefesh Elokis Mamish dwells B'kirvus Mokim, not only B'kirvus Mokim, but in an Indian of what of his slabshas in the Nefesh Habamiyas, and that's an interreactory slabshas. It's with all what you might call all the dinim and all the aspects of what we understand in this slabsha. Ve'eno misarav kiim mulubash b'bchinas oya pnimi mamish. And what's the heichacha that it's mamish ha'inish oya pnimi? Sha'arei ha'nefesh ha'bami is poyo ba'akoyches ha'nefesh ha'lekis. She'boim ba'akshoma alidei slabshas ois lahaskir lahaskolis gashmi. In other words, what the answer is, that the nefesh ha'bami is poyo after nefesh ha'lekis shinuyim loy lefi erech ha'amiti shel nefesh ha'lekis klal. In other words, what you might call shinuyim, almost legaliusa, even from Yeridus ma'alosa. And it's brought down in other places barichis about that, how the nefesh abamish causes certain shinuyim in the oven agila moichin and in amidas noch inyonim in the nefesh alakis. So here the Rebbe says that one of the ikar inyonim is that the nefesh alakis mitzad etzem inyona is shata hasoger, but that's hasoger alakis, but not to hasoger v'askolas gashmiyas. ובכלל הסוגיה היא בהגשמה שאין זה כלל כמו הסוגיה של הנפש לקיס באתר. So two עניון. First of all, he says that it can be עד כדי כך that it causes haskolas gashmias by the nefesh lekis, and then he said generally speaking it causes the asogah to be ba'agshoma, but that's not the oifen of the asogah the nefesh lekis mitzad atzmo. So what does he mean haskolas gashmias? I mean, what does the nefesh lekis, what does she need haskolas gashmias? She needs to be masig, what's happening with the world, with the gashmias, with all the inyonim. The nefesh ativius knows all those inyonim anyway. We should have the nefesh lekis. What does she need to be masculine asogis gashmias? So we have to say that the kavanah of is we see that the nefesh lekis particularly in order to put proper order in a lot of things, al pi kedusha has to know certain inyonim. In other words, but they're not her Ika Inyan, and they came without these slapses in the Nefesh HaBamis, and to a certain extent that's kilu almost like an effect of the Nefesh HaBamis on the Nefesh HaLekis. Dainu, for example, the Nefesh HaLekis sometimes, in order to be masbir, betuv taram ha'inyan of Tachlis HaKedusha, it has to use all sorts of facts in the world that add up to the listeners, but really the Ika Hashpur Inyan is from the Nefesh HaLekis of a B'shas Maisa. The Nefesh HaLekis is borrowing on all sorts of Haskolas. The Gashmias would normally belong to the Nefesh HaTivius or to the higher echelons of the Nefesh HaBamis, and yet nonetheless we see that the Nefesh HaLekis is Yored La'asoi Pinyonim Eila or Al Chaponim to be massing those things al pi kedusha, but after became how they are in the Gashmistic world. That's already Askola. That's already Askola Gashmias, or even Yoter Poshut. That sometimes, in order for the man to look after himself, to see that he should be misnaik, but calling Yona al pi kedusha, then he has to know certainly. The Nefesh HaLekis has to bother her head with certain inyonim, medical facts or nachazok inyonim, that should be Messiah the Odom in his avodah, that he should know how to guard his health, or to be nishma minyonim musayomim, and I feel in inyoni kashrus kedusha. Sometimes you have to be masik your head of masik, the Nefesh HaLekis komene inyonim, which if not the fact that she was mislabish and physical situation as having to do directly with the Nefesh HaBamis, then it could be that it wouldn't have been shaykh all those inyon. Al Chaponim, we see that the Nefesh HaBamis causes the Nefesh HaLekis has to be masik certain haskolas gashmiyas. Because kosher loima that the kavanah is that causes a yirid in the Nefesh HaLekis, that she's masik as all inyonim as over the Nefesh HaBamis. That's very difficult to say. You can't very well learn that pshat. So therefore we have to say that even though there has kolas mitzad the kavanah of kedusha, but nonetheless they're gashmiyas or beklala asogya. He said when any form of asogya, even when she's masik inyonim which are purely on her side, dainu inyonim elakus, and he said there bahagshoma they have a certain material and physical touch to them compared to how she's masik those inyonim in Olam Ha'eli and Tera Miridosala Lamata. Even when she's oisik purely in her inyonim, not inyonim from Gashmis Latoivas inyonim usyonim, but purely in her inyonim, the asoga is in a form of hagshoma. So there we said, Ein Zeh Klal Kamay Asogas and Nefesh HaLekis Be'etzem meaning how she is mamish mitzad her inyan, and if she were to be moved out completely mi'inyonei aguf vi ishlapshus in the Nefesh HaBamis, then her oifen would be her oifen asoga would be me'ain how it is in Gan Eden. which is a completely different Indian altogether. On the contrary, then it sees only the beetle, it sees only the Ayin Eloki, and on the contrary, it's Masbir. The different Noifanim of Beetlevol and Ivroyim, Chulivod Lamaila Miser. Till it comes to the Yin van Ein Zulaselcha, let's move on in Chassidus Baruch. Well, a Hefer, and the opposite.
You can't discount you can't discount the danger that the Nefesh Elokis will get.
The danger?
The danger.
Yeah, sure. Kol HaDrochim
This is our Kedusha.
Kol HaDrochim b'Cheskes Sakona. Yeah, Einachanami. It's very difficult to say that you mamish slept the Nefesh Elokis into being like the Nefesh HaBamis. What you do is you slip her into the Nefesh HaBamis as Inyonim. In Perikov Daled, she always is ready to back out, and immediately the whole tumult stops. Then she immediately bounces back into Kedusha. That's why he says, Gam Shas Achet, Hoyze Ba'omni I Toyet. That's what the Alter writes over there. In other words, it's only a Yerida, but she preserves her Kedusha. After the Yerida. That's the point I'm trying to get across. You understand? Oh, but that Yerida is mitzad the fact that she's nimtza in the Nefesh HaBamis. V'zeh yesh l'zeh tachlis. The tachlis of that is to be tachat mavarahim. Oh, but nonetheless, it's a Yerida. And even that's what he says now, that even when she's masik her in Yonim, it's nonetheless not the way it would be b'hiyoisa b'fnei atzmo mamis.
But there isn't a real danger.
You're right. Yesh b'sekam minion shel sakonim. Yeah, I mean, but in care to,
what does that mean?
What is the nature of that sakana that needs a beer? So the sakana is only in care to where she might get dragged into, or not what would actually happen to her. That's what he brings in Perikov Dalet. She never really gets, affected. She just gets dragged in there. And that's what he brings it. The Rosh Hashanah can be Tom in the face. And so it's the Melech's head. It's not anything else. It's not that the Melech's head becomes shot to the base Gizeh or Rachman in the it gets dragged into the base Gizeh.
What's the union of Kritus?
Kritut.
Kritut.
A Kritut. Yeah, Kerisus, that's what the Alter Rebbe in Igeres HaKodesh, that Kerisus is not that anything happens to the Nefesh Elokis, chas v'sholom. Her whole Ashpoah in the Guf becomes nifsak. The whole chayas of the Ashpoah, the Nefesh Elokis in the Guf, can become nikras with nifsak, which means that he lives just purely at the Nefesh Achiyun is bevar. That's unique from Kodesh. Not that you chop the Nefesh Elokis in half. The Nefesh Elokis just gets blocked off. She's not able to, all the little sort of chutim that keep her kesher with the goof get cut off, so she just retires. But not that anything happens b'etzem to the Nefesh Elokis. And that's why it is that even Chayved Krisis can eventually come to Elam Haba, because the Nefesh Elokis remains Mishlei Musa. That's Ubeklau Soge Ula Hefer. However, the other way around, that's what you might call the Yerida and the Chisoron in the Islapshas. Ula Hefer, and Nefesh Elokis Poyo B'Nefesh HaBamis. The Islapshas works both ways. Like all forms of Islapshas, they work in two ways, and therefore Shagam Hu. What is the Pu'ula in the Nefesh HaBamis? That even he, meaning the Nefesh HaBamis, Yovin Inyan Eloki v'yizbara al yedei zeh. In other words, the Nefesh Elokis has also her big influence on the Nefesh HaBamis. That's the ultimate tachlis of the whole thing. The other inyanim are just the price of the ultimate purpose of tachlis, nirtzo, in the whole thing is the fact that she causes the Nefesh HaBamis also to have a Havana, because he also has Moichin, and through that Havana he becomes Misala even to a Dveikus and a cleaving to Elakus. But the price of that is that she has to be yearned into a certain Hag Shoma. Shekol Zeh, Mipnei Shebo Bihi Slapshas. So here we see a case where the Indian Eloki is mamish betuich islapshas kroivo in the dova whom is mesitracha, not in the oven that we described earlier that they are oimen pamakif the Chayas, the Kedusha is aimed b'machif lagamrei, and not b'hisar v'zklal. Harei, said the Rebbe, hakam shenefesh abamis u minoiga, v'anefesh alekis u betachlis hakedusha, tachlis hakedusha. Harei heim b'chinas islabshas. V'ein anivla spoi chas v'sholim, and the nefesh alekis doesn't get swallowed up in the nefesh habahami is, when we said earlier in all other inyanim of the clippers, ilu, the inyan of kedusha was to be miskala in them, then it would be nivla. Purus adova, that it would just have no ashpoah klal. Nivla means even more than golas, it would just completely swallow it up. And if I said the Rebbe, that doesn't happen. Adarabba, yesh bekoicho limshogolov ulahachniyoi tachas memshaltoi. We see that on the contrary, she can gain from the whole in the upper hand over the nefesh habamis until she eventually becomes. So lefi kol ha'klolim amuskodim li'il. Here we have a very fascinating yaitzim and a klal. We have a thing which is tachlis hakedusha mamish. The nefesh elokis is mamish the highest in and mamish from chokhmei lo, and even lamaylam is a b'shor harishain nimtzo b'toich ha'eslabshis in kol oifanei ha'eslabshis in ha'inish klippus noiga. What that's not only stam noiga, but noiga mit der ganze toich of klippus noiga. And when the ganze amumi is, and the ganze inen of the nefesh habamis, and yet nonetheless b'slabshis ve'einem poelim. Bittel zebe bezeh ela adarabba, der poela bittel davke ba'adrogen, davke b'der bira. So therefore, as a sort of shaila, how does that happen? Charik loima shezeu boilam hazeh davke, shemitzad madreges hasiv u'kolam in shenimtzo davke boilam hazeh, yochol liyes islabshus kozois, da'ainu is chabras toivora. Now here we see the Rebbe said it's a chabras between two inyonim, ad kadei kach hafuchim toiva v'ra. The nefesh elokis is toiv and noiga. Yes, stam noiga mitzadatz is ra, because derek noiga is the nefila into the inyan klippers. Amamira that's a inyan from is chabras toiva, toiv v'ra, and that's only mitzad the gilu aseiv v'kolam, mitzad madreges. He didn't say gilu. Madreges aseiv v'kolamin. Shenim tzodavki boilam hazeh. Now that's an interesting bitui, an interesting lashon, that oir aseiv v'nimtzo davki boilam hazeh. Now it's a lashon which occurs in Drush Exodus. It's not something that just it's an unusual thing that appeared here and we've never seen or heard of it before. It occurs in Exodus that the seiv is nimtzo davki boilam hazeh. Well, that's Teresh Bio. Since the Seiver is Mamish, Kashecha Ka'oiro, and that's the Koyach HaMashve, as Kulam, Yerevo, mitzad the presence of the Eretz Seiver, it's able to be miyachad and whole, two things which normally they wouldn't be able to be held together. And that's how Derek we did him by the Neshama B'Teich HaGuf. If you go to the Nefesh Elokis B'Teich HaGuf, is also Boyim Kozeh. Yato Mishamro B'Kir B'Yas, you do it. Well, that Mishamro B'Kir is the Gila HaSeiv. Kach is Emuvuah. Become Drushim. So it's just a different Oifanim and a different Sidrei Gilui, the same basic principle. That if not the Koyach HaSeiv, we can't have two opposites like Toiv Ora or Guf and Nefesh Elokis. Mamish B'Yachad will be Slavshis Penimis Boivim Kozeh. So was it the beer that the inyan from Seiv Kolamin is Nimtzo Davki Boilam Hazeh? How in the Bosi Lagani he keeps using the expression Meir Miskala Oyer HaSeiv HaMeir B'chol Oelam B'chuluhu Almin B'Shoveh. So L'chel Seiv Kolamin is Meir B'chuluhu Almin. He was the title it's Nimtzo Davki Boilam HaZeh. It's Davki Nimtzo Boilam HaZeh. Where the title there?
Is that the Indian of Basi Lagani?
I should say that's the Indian of Basi Lagani, basically. But they stayed in the Drush from Basi Lagani.
The Indian of this world is the Indian of the Gan of the Eifrishman.
Can I say? אני לא נכנס לזה ברגע, ואני לא שולל את זה, נכון? אבל שתי דעות, in כמה וכמה אויסיוס, תיאור הסבב, is מאיר בכל העולם משווה, על ידי השקף יסתרח, וכולו זה, מאיר בכל העולם, משקלה בכל העולם בשווה. It's anyway there בכל העולם בשווה, it's משקלה. Here, here even before it's miskala, it's nimtza dafke b'olam hazeh. What is the type nimtza dafke b'olam hazeh? What is the type? And if I'm not mistaken, there's a beer later on here in Iron Base, and ulai zebo id mekemes b'silas that the oira seivev, because seivev is really lamaila migilui. And therefore, where you're in a oilamos or oilamois, lashon rabbi, what it's a pilladig gezak. I don't know if I can really say I understand it. We're talking about havana. Nirali shazay state that where you're in a oilam or oilamos, lashon rabbi, what's ika inyanim, but tachlis agilui is that's what their inyan is, and everything is lefia seida of kelim and oiris, and they're all meir one and the other, and they're all alsus begola. There's nothing. The hilam, and the hilam is only just for the sake of the gilui. To say veiv kol almin mitzat the fact that he's lamaila megilui, he's the atzmi, he's the gilui atzmas. He can't be nimtzo in our world. He can't be called nimtza ba'ilm, because he's legamri l'mayla from the whole seder. Therefore, he's meir there in a way, but he's not really nimtza. The ilu b'lamata ba'ilm hazeh was exactly the opposite, where there's no gilui and there's no kelim to the gilui, and everything is behelim. Yeah, b'tachas ahelim. Or davki there, he can be in some form of presence more than what normally. Why? Because since he's all in as he's behelim, avus is als behelim, he can, as it were, he can be there and he can appear there, because belavach everything is behelim, and his Indian is belavach being moved over ne'elam, and therefore he can be more present, as they state in certain drusim. But that gufa needs a beer of all upon him as they state. At a far.
That's why now maybe in 770 you have atzmus.
Yeah.
There's no giluim.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, the giluim are not round, the far, it's got the etzem. Yeah, it's a good point what you say. Our bonim, lafizeh kumtais, that even wasn't a touch, meir b'chol ha'olam is b'shava, nimtza b'chol ha'olam is b'shava, meir b'chul hu almin, if that's it's mavur, and those drushim, that's a ha'ora from the Sefer. That's what he said very nicely. Etzem. That's a ha'ora from the Sefer. A ha'ora from the Sefer, he's meir b'chol ha'b'shava. He's also l'mayla megillah, but he's l'mayla megillah everywhere. Oh, but the etzem ha'Sefer, the atzmius of the Sefer, what you might call the real McCoy of the Sefer, the emissary in what Sefer really is. I don't mean, Sefer, l'mayla mi-Sefer. No, I mean what Sefer is by etzem. Agdor also, that's nimtza yoser, and it's present more in Olam Hazeh. And it will soon see, it can even be more begilui, it can even actually come begilui, b'zeh ha'olam. And that's what the Rebbe means over there, Maya b'kol ha'olam b'shova, gam yichol liot, that through the inif and his kafi v'sitra acher, then he calls a gilui down here, and then all the olamas, they all benefit from that gilui which was down here. But the Ika Gilui was down here, and then they also, what you might call a makabel from the bandwagon. They sort of get on it. Remember, they also get a Gilui. And the Chanami, Gilui of the Sefer can also be Nifal Rakpo. And then, since it's Sefer, and it was Mishkalisa, you might say everybody gets it. It sort of reaches all of them. But the Ika, what you might call Marocha, and the Indian, where this whole Indian is mitbatei, or like you use the expression in Yiddish, is tutzachop, that's it, dafke here, lamata. Kein yesh lama v'dera. That's what he means by this very mystifying expression. Yeah, madregas asev you who nimtza dafke boilam hazeh. It's an interesting expression. And in the, I just couldn't find it in my room, but in the old, when I say the old, Maimah, it's not an old Maimah, but the famous Emshel from Reish Mem Gimel was one of the first Emshel the Rebbe said, Rebbe Rashab. dort in einer von those my mom also written that the Ika Haseva is Lamata. Ika Haseva Lamata, and if I'm not mistaken, over there he gives another view to the whole thing. But I until I see it, I don't want to say for sure what's written there. I was saying B'derech Zikaron from Kamashonim, but unfortunately I didn't have the safe in my room, now so I couldn't be Mavara. Dort he says something that because Sevedim from Rotzen, where's the Ika Rotzen Davki Bishleimus Rotzen Davki Bemilu Rotzen? Well, that's where you have the Ika, Matthias of the Rotzen. That's where it's taken for you. Davki Beilam Hazeh. That's the Milu Kol Rotzen. The ultimate, Nisave. Over the Indian from Oyer HaSeviv was more Nimtzo Davki Po B'Zeho, more betaken. I say it also steht dort. Aber in other Jerusalem it's written another beer. The beer I just gave over now, that's what steht. And I think here in Ein Beis, somewhere in Behemshach, darf steht das. It's in these Bamire, it's how do you call it, two sides of the same coin, Doman. Auch upon him, it's here in Ein Beis, when you see these amazing Lashoines, just to wait a minute, this is, it's a whole Yesod, and it is sort of way it just weaves through, in a few words, and you sort of put it together. Yochel Lies, Ishlapshis Kozais, Dainu is Chabas Toivora. That's also interesting, because Noiga is not Mamishra, Yesh Boigam Toiv. We have to say that Gabi Amitis are Toiv, that even the Toiv of Noiga is Ra. Avo is a Lamailo. Ein hakoidish or hektish hakoidish misarev bachoyo v'oimed rak b'pchinas machin. Now here we see lamaila. So the expression lamaila is also tricky because he means here in the clippers, in the shorish of the clippers. It's hard to say the clippers are lamaila. So what he means by the word lamaila in Parshas, he means in the ruchnias, not mitzad olam hazeh, but the shorish of the clippers, how they function. That he calls that lamaila, not mitzad the etiminin of olam hazeh. Ein HaKodesh Misarev B'cho V'Oimed Rak B'Pchinas Makiv. He said Rak Lamata. Davke down here, Yochel Lies is Chabris HaNefesh HaLekis VaNefesh HaBahomiyas Aridei Oyer Ein Seif HaSeivev. Ach, Zeu Be'erem. In other words, here we have a fascinating idea. Nimtzo, it's there. Nimtzo, it is. But it's Be'erem. But it's not, and therefore, I'm sure here in Ein Beis somewhere the Rebbe says it. He defines that principle also a little. He said that it's nimtzo, pirush ador, that it's nimtzo here lamata behelem, but it has a certain hargosha, it has a certain what you might call hashpua, despite the fact that it's behelem. That would make good sense, because here we see that even though it's only behelem, nonetheless it causes ais chabras. It does have a certain effect that even toivora can be misachet beyachad. But now we're going to see there's an even further in that, and that fits in maybe nicer with the lashon of the Basi Lagani. Omnim yesh gamkein gilui haseivev lamata. Even more, there can be an inyan for gilui haseivev here in this world. Shemamshichim alidei mitzvahs. Oh, that's the from Kiyum mitzvahs. Ukeneida shamitzvahs hein rotzen ha'elyon, and rotzen ha'elyon is save v'nimshak al yodom gilui b'chinos ein seif ha'aseivev. In other words, a ball of the mitzvahs. In Yonam is rotzen, that's the inyan from seiver. Oh, and here's a further step. Not only nimtzo aseivev, and not only puyo behelem b'miktas gilui, but yosha begilui. So the truth is, it's written in some places that's also behelem lafiera, because even though it's nimtza or and nimsha begilui, but the ikka gilui is only going to be, getting a bit weary of saying that ikka is only going to be, this is only going to be, let's get moving. What are we waiting for? How long have you been saying this is going to be? Anyway, the Rebbe said this is going to be is already be. It's already there. Anyway, whatever. Yeah. So he says Gile ein Shafa Seiva. I mean the Ike of that Gile, even though it's a Gile, is going to be Liosi. However, a mitzvah is yesh bohem zgula protius lahalish or akasha nefesh abamish lelakus. That's the way the gilui works. That when you do the mitzvah, and that's brought down in Sforim, that we see all different mitzvahs have got different inyonim. What if it's well known that if you do that mitzvah, then that's a zgula, it's poil for you this, and it's poil in some other inyonim, v'chuli. But like we see, but just because we're talking about sukkahs, and yeshivas sukkah causes a simcha, or kol the inif in midas a simcha, gilui a simcha, and the inif in Rosh Hashanah is shate the inif in Kabbalah Seir and Tkiyah Sheva, shate the inif in Lamayla Mitava Echai. Each mitzvah has got its own zgula, which is poil in a oifen masuyam in the nefesh abamiyos. And it's even brought down in certain sforim, certain skulas, even yoter proti is that if you mahader in a certain mitzvah, then it's a skula le'inyan zeh v'chuli. So the Rebbe said that those things are not al pi tam, but they're not al pi seida. No, that's the gilui at a seiver in a form of taking the nefesh abamish mamish by his nose and lifting him up into a edelkeit and a isbararus, losing his chumiyas and being shaykh into drawing him into the Indian of Kedusha. In other words, that those skulas protiyas, they're connected with the Indian of the nefesh abamish. On the day, but that skula protiyas is misgala, or that's a sign that the nefesh abamish has been misale into a dakis yoser and become bottle more to the nefesh abamish. Okay, Kain. Now we're going to see a little bit later on here in the Maimonim HaKrevim that the inif in the Ketores in Avodah is connected with the Avodah of Rusa Deliba, and Rusa Deliba means the Avodah Lamayla Mitam Fadas. That's the Avodah how it is, even for Rotz and Halei, but that's Pnimis Vatzimis Halei Kiyadua. Even though in Tanya occasionally the word Rusa Deliba is used a fil of inyonim which are shaykh l'chayr to time at us, but the immediate musik of Rusa Deliba here in these inyonim means the avodah shalamayla medida v'agbola altogether. So he said that the gilui hasevu can also be can be mitzad that type of avodah, and that's avodah klolis in the whole inyan of the Adam and his avodah in Torah mitzvahs. It's lamayla mi ta'avadas. It's called Rusa Deliba, and it's kilo, a form of midah she'adam moeded, kach moeded imloi, not midah keneged midah, but midah she'adam moeded, kach moeded imloi, or adam noisen maloi oimsoi, ba'elam hazeh noisen imloi maloi oimsoi. Milmaila, what that's a union of kilo midah keneged midah, even though it's not in the real sense, that having given himself in a form of makif etzloy, and in a form of almost what you might call a form of Yetziyah, we call Gedorim Shaloi, a form of Hefkeiros, then Ali Dezehu, who Mamshik, Lamata Gam, the Indian of Seivu, Begilu. Okamoshi is Boya. Shali Dezehu, who Ike Biro, and Nefesh Abam years, Beprinas Ishapchach, Shoichalin Hoiro, Okamoshi is Boya. We'll see as we go along here, that's only going to take a bit of time, the pace that we move, but it's going to be Mizboya later on. That the avodah even from Rusa Deliba, or that avodah Lamayla Legamri from Medida Vakbola, or that can bring not only to a bira in the nefesh abamish, but eventually bitulei Legamri and Mamela Kemavu and Tanya isapchusei into the Inyan Kedusha. So we'll see that's Daf Kitoloi in avodah completely Lamayla Medida Vakbola of Seichel. And that's what we'll see. It's connected. It's got a certain kesher to that concept of shtus to kedusha amavu in Bosi Lagan. V'chol zeh hu alidei hanefesh eliki. Oh, now here's an interesting chiddush. V'chol zeh hu alidei hanefesh elikis davke. She'im hoya hagilui l'nefesh abamius hoya mizbater legamrei. V'loi b'der biro. Okeneda be'inyan habrachas diyitzchak. That if you'd have brought down the brachas directly onto Esav, then it would have either been Nivlo boy or would have caused him Ashvili, would have been misbattled. The Gamri moment you say. Mipnesha ain't a kli lela, because Rak, Alidei, Hanefesh Elokis, Davke, Hu Abira, the Nefesh Abamiyah. Here's a very fascinating Nakuda. What it comes out is that even weren't for the fact that the Nefesh Elokis and Makifim of Seive would be Mizkala in the Nefesh Abamiyas, it would be destroyed. It would be lost altogether. Seive, Amiti, this type of Seive that we're talking here, Gilui Seive, if that were to be Mizkala in the Nefesh Abamiyas, he would be completely lost altogether, and there would be lacking the whole inyan of Bira, Alachas Kama Vachama, Loyan and Reif van Isapchach Shechelim, then that is all Zikan as you can time. Even though you can think maybe because if it was from such a power, then so here we see an amazing thing. That the Gilui of Seiva Kalaman has to be two and Alidei the Nefesh Elokis. The Nefesh Elokis, she, through Torah Mitzvahs and through a fellow Rusa de Liba and noch inyanim that we'll see, the Nefesh Elokis, she divides up how the Nefesh how the Seiva Kolamin is going to affect the Nefesh Abam. In other words, it goes through the Nefesh Elokis, and even though Be'ikar, that's a inim from Seiva, or the Nefesh Elokis is able to pass that over into the Shetach of the Nefesh Abam, is even that he won't be misbattled. In other words, if we bow, even though the Nefesh Elokis in Yonah is Pnimi, but Derech Kla, that's the Pshat, she comes from Atzilas, and Derech the Inyonim, Chochma, what they're Inyonim for no Pnimi, or mitzad the fact that she's Elakus Pietzim, and Ika in Yonah is Menet Virotz and Havaya, yet ever you can be Megala to her, the Inyan of the Ur HaSeiv, and she, as it were, parts it out to the Nefesh Abam. She divides up the Ur HaSeiv over to the Nefesh Abam. Is Bo'even Kazer that he will eventually be Makabaret and he will be Mizbareh. But she doesn't take the whole Kabul of the Seiv Kalam with one mach and give it over to the Nefesh Abamis, because then it's not going to help. It'll be any of an Avod and Vabitl, just like it would have been. But that was Kilo de Chisonen in the Inif and the Kavana of Birchas Yitzchak, that at that particular time it wouldn't be able to be Shayach, because it would just cause him my initial bitl, or in it would be Lavachi Nivla boy, which you like as a lot of Chok is a Kokak Zemi Zemize. Amamela, and that's a fascinating meaning. Here we see that all Inyonim are filled a mile midid of Akbola. All Inyonim, when they come B'derech Seivev, they have to be nimshach into the hands of the Nefesh Elokis. Then she divides them up, and as you were, splits them up into the pocket of the Nefesh Abamiyas. Otherwise, the Nefesh Abamiyas wouldn't be shy. And all those Gulas Proteus and all those Inyonim eventually, if it's Hapcha, they just wouldn't happen. It's a Perikizar. That the Nefesh Elokis is Kilo, what you might call the conductor of the band, that she receives all the Giluim, and she, as it were, spreads out the Gilui HaSeiv and sprinkles it in such a way that the Nefesh Abamis is able to take it. Avahen Chanami. Biladei that Koyach HaSeiv, the Bitl Seifi is an Amiti in the Nefesh Abamis wouldn't be shy. It's a very fascinating kudah. The Ik is the Nefesh Elokis. Nimtza, who really runs the show is the Nefesh Elokis in Alinyon. I feel when you do mitzvahs and everything, all these Zgula Tikinyonim which reach the Nefesh Abamis, but they're Zgula, they all have to go through the Nefesh Elokis. It's not as, hocus pocus is what it looks. It goes through the, the conducting power of the Nefesh Elokis, Davke. It's a fascinating akudah. Well, we see that it's becoming bedtime stories around here. V'alpi hanal yuvan inen hakrof is ha'ayim porim. Well, that's quite a bedtime story, that one. Yeah. If we'll understand even hakrof ha'ayim porim b'chagatzukis shezeu biru ha'ayin sorim denoige, as is well known, that this shivim porim, that they were connected to Shiva Mumas, what the shores of the Shiva Mumas is the unit from the Ayin Sori. Yeah, in other words, the Maki for the Clippers. The Hina Yadua, the Makivin, the Sukkis, Hain Me'anan, HaKiteiros, the Yom Kippurim. Shezeu Biro Hayuda of Kisorim. That's a Biro, not only Stam a Biro, he is Bora Kaman, the Kiteiros, the Yom Kippurim, who oid Biro Elin Yoter. We'll see not just Stam a Biro, but that's a Biro, like we saw, not just Stam Mevara, the Netzutes, and Poil in them a beetle, but it's also Poil Ahinshal Hapek, Metzius, and Megamri to the Inin HaKedusha, and therefore we'll see that that's connected with the Aveda Satshuva, with the Inin from Tshuva, Nailis B'Yesa, which is Shat Yom Kippur. Oksiv ki be'onon ero'eh al ha-kapoiras, with the onon I will be seen, ero'eh bi'at shmusi. In other words, the inifan amitius gilu asayv. V'nimshach b'pinas makif, it's nimshach, or that Indian, how it is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, ala kapoiras, or that's nimshach yidua into the makifim of the sukkah. ועל ידי הדלת מינים שבלולב נמשו בפנימיה, כמו שכוסו לקחתם לו לוחם ביום הראשון. But that's an even further and great in which not כל כך מבואר here, that eventually that makif becomes mamish nimshach into pnimias. ובכוח המשוחס המקיף מבררים את העין סורים למטה. In other words, the inif and Rasayula, we saw that Davki here lamata, it has the power to be miskale. Mashenkin bo'ilam esalyonim. So halalos Hashem kol goyim. V'koy ala nefesh habam. Yes, interesting. The Rebbe says the kol goyim is referring bigger to the nefesh habam. The nefesh habam, but that reminds one of the famous story of Rav Shmuel Monkeys. He said to the Alter Rebbe when he sort of barged his way into the Alter Rebbe's house late at night, and the Alter Rebbe smiled at him and said, "If you're not careful, I'll bring the goy to throw you out." So he said, Rebbe, he said, bring to our goy. He said, mein goy is a sakres of an Ira goy. That's the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe really was pleased with that one. The Alter Rebbe really understood the joke. And he became a very devoted chassid of the Alter Rebbe. So he understood. That's the Indian Hallelujah Hashem Kol Goyim, all the different Nefesh Habamis. All the Nefesh Habamis. Shigam, it's interesting because he started with the Ayin Sorim Denoiga. You should come back to the Goyim, don't forget about the Goyim in the Nefesh Habamis. As I said, the Koyal Nefesh Habam, Shigam Nefesh Habamis is Bara V'yiyeh B'chinas, Avol Elikus. Like we said, that's the Indian. When Esapcha, or even before Esapcha, she can have a tough time in the Indian Elikus. So alidei ki govor aleinu chasdei. That's because there's his gabras upon us. Who is us? Luchinus gilei amakim. Shagili hu lenefesh elakis. Aleinu to us means to the nefesh elakis, and that's the Indian of the gilei amakiv. Like we saw at the end of the Maimer, Davki to the Nefesh Elakis, and she knows how to give that makif over into the Nefesh Habamis. So ki gover aleinu davke. Aleinu meaning the Nefesh Elakis. Who are we? We are really the Nefesh Elakis. Nefesh Elakis, who shemavaler as a Nefesh Habamis. Taki with the koach hamakif. But she knows how to deal with it and how to give it over. So halalos Hashem kol goyim. Yes, ki gover aleinu chasdei. V'chineskile hamakif alidei zeh kama nefesh habamis yahalol v'yishabeach. So we see that the Ikeh, the Rebbe places his Ikeh, the Ikeh spotlight falls on the nefesh habamis at the end. Even though the Ayin Purim were connected there, and Sorim al-Semas of a so the Ikeh Mechutin is the nefesh habamis. If you get rid of him, but the Ayin Sorim it will be misbattled. Like we saw that all the other ilm is chaparayim. Once the mensch took by Zichep, it's very fascinating. He starts with he finishes out the whole sikum ma'in as tafkid the nefesh.
The bigger chiddush is the goyim kipshuta.
Yeah, well, that's what he says. The Ayin Sonim is their shurish. Yeah, what he means to say is that the rem is being that if we'll just do something without nefesh habamis, all the goyim will just follow suit. All the Inyanim will fall into place. So even though in the Chanami, it's a sign. It's also the mensch has to ask himself the question: what's tutum with them? Even though it's a minute before Mashiach and everything's been finished, Alzheimer's, but you see that you're still going to ask yourself: be careful. Where are you really holding? Are you still drawing a cup, or are you not? That sort of question is always going to be, and according to the Targum Yosef, maybe even an element more. That sort of question is always going to be relevant. That's what I learned out from that little piece there. Emphasis all the Ayin Sonim and so watch it, watch it. Make sure you're mavarahim, or if you're mavarahim and you got him under control, then you can approach away. את כל העניין. It's interesting, sometimes, the word my wife said to me this morning, she said, I think that the main problem is there's still quite a lot of yeshus around. That was a very interesting remark. She said, there's too much yeshus around. And, when you think about it, it's a very intelligent remark. It's still Lefshe Apam is still, with all the tremendous signorin that the Rebbe gave us and revealed to us and all but you've got to be careful that, not let that little Lefshe Apam is therefore you get him under control, you get him then Hallos Hashem Kol Goyim and the Kol Ayin Soyim and the else to do is it comes under control. Gewalt. Wo ist es?
It's Tu B'Shvat.